fan. And today I just feel like having a wee bit of a rant because I want to know, does anybody else think that people are just getting a wee bit soft? And when I say people, I mean football players. So, this is something that we've been talking about in our group chat for a little bit of a while. It's something that's been bothering me a wee bit. And just what happened recently with Jed Spence and the other wee boy, what's his name? I've lost it, Mickey Van de Ven, God love him. He's that annoyed me, I forgot his name. But that they've walked past their manager, they've walked past their fans, straight down the tunnel. And when this was addressed in the manager's press conference, he said, well, one of the reasons was they didn't like the fact that they were being booed. And I just thought, well, God forbid a fan would act like a fan. So I decided, sure, look, we'll have a wee chat on a Thursday evening, we'll have a wee rant, we're more than halfway through the week, so let's get it all off our chest. Maybe other people are feeling this way, maybe I'm just being a wee bit mean. Now, I was almost late, I saw Twisted, is Lou going to be fashionably late? No, Lou was though running around, you know the wee white rabbit in Alice in Wonderland with his wee watch going, I'm going to be late, I'm going to be late. That was me, but I wasn't with a watch, I was with a wee cuppa. So I'm on time, just about. So hopefully you'll let me away with it. Now, I just want to preface this first of all by saying, obviously I'm not talking about abuse. I'm not talking about racism. I'm not talking about threats of physical violence. I'm not talking about people's families. I am talking about criticism of a football player based on their footballing ability, their footballing form, how they're performing on the football pitch in their role. Okay, so abuse is bad. We all agree on that for the most part, I think. But Anthony, I'm more like the Mad Hatter. I probably am, to be fair. But we're not talking about abuse. We're talking about genuine fan reaction, fan opinion on footballers. Okay, so I just want to preface that because I know the people off the internet sometimes like to take things and run with it. So the whole conversation is based on that preface. Now, you will have seen a number of players in the thumbnail. I'm going to go through some of them. Get your players in the comments. Is there anybody that you feel takes a lot of abuse? How do they handle it? Do they take it well? Do they not? Because for me, I'm going to give you my opinion at the outset. I believe that when you put yourself in a career that's in the public eye and that is essentially for people's entertainment, you're putting yourself out there for potential criticism. That's singers, actors, YouTubers, footballers. If you put yourself in the public eye, people are going to have opinions. So I think for you to then say, oh, well, that annoyed me, people shouldn't say that. Like, you probably have to catch yourself on a wee bit. Like, if I put myself out there and I'm doing, like, YouTube videos and somebody comes to me and is like, I don't really agree with her opinion, I can't be mad at that. I've put myself out there. Now, if they're being abusive, it's a bit different. But if they're just saying, look, I don't agree with her, like, she doesn't know what she's talking about, I may not like it, but I can't really be like, oh, I can't believe they said something mean about me. Because I've put myself in that position. And so as far as I'm concerned, it's the same thing with footballers. So, Rob, I'm a bit clippy. It could be because I'm normally on, well, the last time I was on StreamYard, this one I'm doing it from my phone because honestly StreamYard's a nightmare and I don't have my technical support with me at the minute. So I went with it on the phone. It could just be that the internet on the phone is a wee bit wonky. If it's really bad, let me know and I'll see if I can do anything. I don't know what that might be, but I'll push some buttons and see if it helps. So just let me know. It could have been just a wee bit of a lag temporarily on the internet. Hopefully it's going to fix itself because as we have already established, I am not good with the old technology and it could just be a bit of a disaster. Thank you though for everybody who's joining. I'm seeing all the familiar faces. I'm seeing Guess, Anthony, Flossie, Twisted, Danny, you're in the chat, Dave, Boy, Matthew, everybody's there. Thank you all. Rob, always united. You're clippy, Lou. Read up, Rob. Maybe I've had a typo. Anyway, once it's working, it's okay. But so the first player I want to talk about in terms of this, in terms of somebody who's faced this scrutiny and who I believe dealt with it really, really well, is Harry Maguire. Now, he doesn't necessarily deal with it anymore because he's had a bit of a comeback arc, so he has. But Harry Maguire, for several years and several seasons, really, really went through the ringer. There was a lot of our fans calling for his head. There's still some of them that really like just sell him. But he went through a really, really bad time. He was heavily criticised by fans, on social media, in the traditional media, everywhere you looked. He was then demoted. The captaincy was taken off him. He publicly went through the ringer. And my personal opinion is that he handled it so well. He put his head down. He didn't start posting stuff all over Twitter. He wasn't on Instagram wearing other clubs' t-shirts, jerseys. He wasn't like walking off the pitch ignoring the manager. He wasn't doing any of that. He wasn't in doing all these mad interviews, saying all sorts of crazy things. He really dealt with it really, really well. And so Harry Maguire, for me, will be kind of a ballpark of how I would expect or want all players to deal with that. That is the mentality that I want to see in my football players when I'm saying they need the right mentality. They need to look at it the right way. They need to get their head down. Their attitude needs to be correct. That's who I'm thinking about. And yes, bored Dave boy, I mean Lord Maguire, my bad. But he did. Like, I think he is exactly what most people, maybe they don't have him in mind, but he exhibits the traits that most people are talking about when they're saying you need to have the right mentality. Now, his talent level, I know, is a bit more debatable. He's really grown on me, so I won't get into it. But in terms of just mentality, unfortunately, his mentality seems to be less and less and less sort of out there. And I don't know, I'm going to sound like I'm 90 years old. I don't know if maybe it's the younger players coming through, if it's a younger generation, because obviously they have lived all of their lives on social media. It's very, very important to them. It's very different than those of us maybe that grew up before the internet was a thing, before, you know, you could access everything on your phone. There was no such thing as phones when I was a baby. So maybe it is different when you've grown up in that era of just judgment everywhere. But they definitely seem a lot more sensitive to it. And so we did see that, as I've sort of alluded to, at the weekend with the Spurs players. The fans booed them, and essentially they got a bit annoyed that the fans booed them and walked off the pitch without clapping the fans and without even speaking to their manager. And I just thought, that's a wee bit sensitive. Like, fans are going to behave like fans. You didn't play well. Your team isn't performing. Things are not good. And you're being petty and basically, well, they booed me, so I'm not clapping them. Like, what is that? Like, that's just not for me, that's very, very soft. And it's not what I would expect from professional footballers. I expect them to suck it up and go over and clap the fans, thank them for turning up, apologise for your performance, not throw a strop, and then privately apologise to your manager. You throw that strop publicly, get out there and publicly apologise to all of the fans, because that's who you're letting down. And at the end of the day, if there's no fans, there's no club, there's no matches, there's no football players, there's no job. That's it. It's that straightforward. The fans are your customers. Act like it. Terrible customer service, 0 out of 10. Now, I see Twisted in the chat saying even professionals have emotions. I totally understand that. They're entitled to have their emotions. They're not entitled to have them on the pitch, in my opinion. Go into the locker room, have a bit of a rant, chat to each other, give out about the fans, hit a punching bag, get it out of your system, be mad. I'm not saying be emotionless. I'm saying it's part of your job not to take that emotion out on the fans. Like, I work with customers every single day. All day, every day I work with customers. The public are a nightmare. I'm emotional. I'm a very emotional person. People annoy me. But I can't, in my shop, turn around to the customer and be like, just get lost. Stop talking. Go away and leave me alone. I can't do that because I'm in my professional environment. Therefore, I'm expected to behave differently than I would behave if I'm in my home environment, or if in my personal environment, or if I'm talking to somebody in the street. You are expected to behave differently. Do you know what I mean? Now, I just want to read some of your comments. Sorry, this is going to get so much smoother, but I just want to read some of your comments because otherwise I'll just go on and on and on and on. And obviously there's other players that I want to be talking about. So I want to just make sure that I'm checking your comments and making sure that everybody feels involved, because we are. We're just having a little tea party here. Maguire is not in my FPL. I should fix that. Taking the armband off him took a lot of pressure off him and able to focus on just playing. Anthony, I totally agree. Yes, taking the armband off Maguire was the best thing that ever happened to him. It allowed him to totally focus on being just a player. And to be honest, I actually think he's exhibited much more leadership skills since the armband has been taken off him than he did while he had it, to be quite honest with you. So I do completely agree. Bored Dave boy. It's not just football, it's society as a whole. I run a scaffolding business and it's banter and abuse all day long. It's life, time they grow up. And I think that's a big thing. I really do. I think sometimes it's very hard, if it's not with they're around all the time, to know when the banter ends and the abuse starts. And I suppose my point of view would be, if somebody says to you in a general sense, look, you did that, it made me uncomfortable, I would expect the other person to take that on board. When your business is entertainment, you have to expect there's going to be critics. Like, there's literally a whole industry made out of criticising movies because they're made for entertainment. Do you know what I mean? Nobody's saying like anything about the actors' personal lives, but they might say, oh, well, they were a bit wooden in that role, their accent wasn't great. Do you know, it's part of entertainment that you're putting it out there to be judged, essentially. So people are going to judge. Now, like I said at the start, I don't agree with abusive behaviour, but I do think that people just need to maybe not take everything so much to heart. And I'm saying this from a place of experience. I'm the most sensitive person ever. I take everything to heart. But then I have to catch myself and I have to be like, right, okay, grow up. Not everything is as dramatic as you're feeling it. And I think sometimes these players need that as well. And so I do understand what you're saying, but I do think as well we need to just, I think they're being a wee bit soft. But that was the whole point of having the video about this, is to get other people's opinions, because obviously we're not all going to think the same. There is people out there that maybe think, look, fans are going a wee bit too far, fans are being a bit too mean. And to be honest, that actually brings me on to the next person that I want to talk about, which is Trent Alexander-Arnold, who is a little bit of a controversial figure at the moment. Now, I've seen loads of quotes from all different pundits. One of the ones that I saw today was, I think it was from Roy Keane, but I know he's not the only one who's been speaking about this. And there we go, Mama Flossie, that's it exactly. He leaves Liverpool in a cloud, under suspicious circumstances on how long he had known that this move was going to be on the way, having learned his Spanish, and then he's come back. He's visited the day before the match, the Jota Memorial, obviously, who was a teammate of his and a good friend, I would imagine. And then he takes to the pitch late into the match and he is booed. And I mean really booed every single time he touches or comes in the vicinity of the ball. Now, there is a lot of pundits out there, there's a lot of fans on social media saying, you know, the Liverpool fans are a disgrace, he was one of their own, he's a local lad, he's played over 200 matches for them, he's given them years of his life, you know, that's not how they should be treating him, they need to grow up, it's terrible. Now, I see both sides of this one, because I'm a bit like, do you know what, it seems a wee bit mean, particularly in the context of the fact that he had just visited the memorial. It's obviously an emotional occasion in different ways. So I was like, oh, it is a wee bit mean. Like, every time he touches the ball, like he's one of them. And then I was like, right, but if I was a Liverpool fan, or if that was one of our players, I'd probably boo him. I'd be really mad. I'd boo him. I'm petty. I would 100% boo him. And so it just made me think how easily you can fall into that sort of mollycoddling them a little bit, being like, oh, you don't be mean, don't be booing him, don't make the sad noise when you see him. And I just thought, you know what? We are a wee bit soft. Even as fans, I think we've become a wee bit soft, haven't we? So with that one, I really did see both sides. What did you guys think? I see Flossie is in the chat booing, so I think I can guess that her opinion was. But what did you guys think of that? Did you think that the booing was okay? Did you think the pundits giving out about it was a wee bit soft? Do you think it was a disgrace? Do you think he deserved it? It is a little bit of a mixed bag on that one. So I'm very curious to see what people think. So get your comments, let me know. I'm going to take a sip of my tea while you're all typing. Okay, so Anthony. Trent Alexander-Arnold has done nothing wrong. He fulfilled his contract to Liverpool, and Liverpool fans need to learn that no human being is tied to somewhere for life. United fans never booed Stam when he left for free. That's fair enough. He did absolutely fulfill his contract. And I understand, like when you're young and you grow up, I know for me, when I was growing up and I was going to college, there's a very, very good college in the town that I'm from that did the exact course that I wanted to do. I picked a course in a college that was an hour away, much to my parents' dismay, because then you're paying rent and travel and everything else. But it was because I grew up and I wanted to fly the coop. I wanted to move away from what I knew, and I wanted to, get out into the world. And I suppose that lifestyle is very different for footballers because they're in youth academies, they're in football camps, they're footballing all their lives. To be at the level they're at, to do the things they're doing, they're in football all of their lives. So they never really get that experience, I think, that a lot of us do as youths, and a lot of youths get these days, where you grow up, you go to college, you go to the next city over, you go travelling, you do interrailing. The world is our oyster at the moment. We're more and more connected all the time, and a lot of us want to fly the coop, spread our wings and see different parts of the world. And so I think when he said, playing for Liverpool was his dream, I 100% believe that. He grew up there, he's played with them a long time, and I genuinely believe that he loves the club. And I suppose from my point of view, I could see why somebody who could love Liverpool, where Liverpool could have been his dream, but then he wanted to explore the world. Not because, leaving Liverpool was what he wanted to do, but because he had grown up in this environment and now he wanted to spread his wings a wee bit. So I can completely understand where he's coming from. I think from what I've seen, a lot of the problems that Liverpool fans seem to have was the fact that it felt a wee bit sneaky. He was learning Spanish on Duolingo, if that was even real. It seemed a bit on the sly, was how it came across. Now, of course, what we don't know is, did he tell Liverpool, look, at the end of this contract, I'm leaving? And Liverpool just decided not to do anything about it? Because if that's the case, he wasn't sneaky, he was very clear about what his intentions was, and the club themselves didn't handle it very well. That part we'll never know, and to be honest, I think for me that part is key in understanding how mad I would be as a fan. Because if the club dropped the ball and knew he was going to leave and just didn't handle it, I'm like, okay, well, a lot of that's on the club. If he was very sneaky, learning Spanish on the sly and actually properly just run down his contract without any warning, then I can understand being mad. Because it's not necessarily the fact that he's leaving, it's the fact that he's leaving, he's in the lurch and he's aren't getting anything out of him. So I just think we're missing some key information for me on that, but I definitely understood why he wanted to maybe broaden his horizons a little bit, particularly at the age that he's at. So let me see some more comments, because I know there was loads more and then I just went off on a tangent. Also, I have been informed that I speak very fast on these, so if I'm speaking too fast for everybody, please tell me to slow down. I naturally speak incredibly quickly. I understand with my accent that might be a wee bit odd, or I know I get the notifications on my YouTube that people have to turn on the captions to watch my videos. So if I'm speaking really, really fast, please tell me. I will try and speak at a more human pace, but I feel like I'm speaking in slow motion. So just bear with me. Keep me updated on how it's going in there for you guys. I'm going to try and get into some more of these comments. Right, we've John Lord, Harry Maguire, there's Anthony. Bored Dave Boy. If I had been unlucky enough to be born a Scouser, I wouldn't have booed him last season when he was playing for Liverpool. Last night I would have given it for sure. That's fair enough. While he's still your player, no, you're going to hold back. When he comes back with his new team though, boom, it's on him. So actually that's probably pretty fair. Guess, yes. T for the win. Let me see. Okay, so Matthew Bullman. So Matthew, from reading your comment, you are a Liverpool fan. Tell me if I'm understanding that correctly. It's the stupid fanboys that probably booed him. Not all Liverpool fans, but it seems all of us were booing him. I didn't. I moved on. And I do think that's probably a very good comment to make. It wasn't everybody. It's not all the fans. It's a section. And we often say when these things happen, it's a loud minority, which is absolutely probably the case. And I have seen Liverpool fans online saying, you know, that they also didn't agree with this booing and they didn't think it was the right thing to do. So even within the Liverpool fan base, it's definitely something that has caused a bit of controversy, a bit of like infighting, which seems to be going on in all the clubs at the minute. But I just thought it was really interesting because he sort of has kept the head down. Do you know what I mean? He's not fighting back. He's not like, you know, some of the others coming out going, well, the fans are distracting me. The fans are being mean to me. I haven't seen a huge amount from his camp being like, oh my God, I can't believe the fans did that. He seems to be a wee bit like sad about it, you know what I mean? Which I can understand, but I haven't seen a lot of them sort of coming out and going, oh my God. Do you know, so he seems to be dealing with it quietly, quite well, not the walking wounded. So I don't know if I'd put him in the soft category. And so obviously the next man that we are going to talk about was the man of the summer. Flossie, cover your ears. It is Alexander Isak. Now, I believed before the summer Alexander Isak was a quiet young man. There was just nothing wild about him. He was just getting on with business. And then Liverpool, again, enter the room. They're in all the drama, so they are. And for the first wee while of the transfer drama, he was quite quiet. It was the clubs were sort of fighting and their PR teams were going at it, and he was more or less quite quiet and just letting them sort of fight it out. When it started to appear that maybe the deal actually just wasn't going to happen, it wasn't going to move forward, it seemed absolutely stuck, and people were like, oh my God, they're going to, like, Newcastle's going to have to keep him here. That's when things started to come out, oftentimes through his agent or through a third party or through a source or the whole lot. We started hearing about these broken promises, about these secret agreements, about all of these things, and it essentially culminated in him more or less going on strike. He wasn't turning up for training, he wasn't doing what he was supposed to be doing. I believe there was some sort of a thing where he couldn't attend the team training because he was injured, but then he was training in another country. And while this might not be to do with fans, it's certainly to do with a player not getting their own way. So for me, it falls into a similar category. Now, again, I've seen all the different schools of thought on this. I can understand a lot of the different sides. I have a bit of a background in PR, so that probably colours my view a little bit. And now obviously I run my own business, so I probably do see a lot of different angles. And again, I think it's probably a bit more nuanced maybe. We don't have all the information, the same as the Trent Alexander-Arnold situation. Maybe these agreements were in place and maybe Newcastle did renege on them. And if that was the case, I would be very mad. If it's the case that these agreements weren't in place and he actually just really wanted this move, and because he couldn't get his own way, he went on strike, it's a bit tantrumy. It's a bit soft. You signed a contract. At the end of the day, nobody put a gun to your head. Nobody held your hand. You went in, you read the contract, your solicitor read the contract, you chose to sign it. What happens after that then? You know, you've signed up to it of your own free will. Therefore, you do expect some sort of honour. And we're seeing this more and more where players are starting to go on strike. Anthony did it a wee bit to come to Manchester United, you know, with all sorts happening in the summer. Now, they weren't on strike, but they were sort of excluded from the squad, you know, where we had Rashford and Garnacho not training with the team, Sancho nowhere near the grounds, because they needed a move. So we are starting to see this more and more and more, where players are going on strike if they're not getting what they want. They're throwing all their toys out of the pram, and they're essentially failing to do their job, is really what it comes down to. So I did think, on the preface that there was no written or like legally binding agreement, for him to be able to leave at that time, he really should have just done his job. And there is the sort of the thought that now he's not doing particularly well since his move. Maybe it's a little bit of karma. Maybe it's all catching up to him. Maybe he should have just put the head down. But then there are those people that say, well, if he'd put the head down, he'd not gone on strike, he'd continued training, Newcastle's hand wouldn't have been forced, and he wouldn't have got the move. And then Newcastle are stuck with an unhappy player that doesn't want to be there, which might be, you know, worse. Because actually, Volta Messi, if we listen to our Ash, seems to be off to a flyer. So, you know, Newcastle don't necessarily seem to have got the wrong end of the deal here. It actually looks like at the moment, while they're doing well in the league in terms of this particular transfer, Liverpool have come off the worst. So there's a whole lot of moving parts going on in there. Let me know what you think. Do you think there was an agreement? If there was an agreement, do you think the club should have stuck to it? And if they didn't, he was right to go on strike? Do you think he should have just suck it up, Buttercup? You signed a contract, do your job. So what side of the fence are you on? I'm going to get into, I see paragraphs everywhere, so I'm going to get in and read some of them, so it's not just me going on and on about my own voice. Let me see. Just back on the booing. Anthony, prime example for Liverpool fans. You don't boo Stevie Mac, do you? Social media has just made a place for keyboard warriors to have an opinion, because the UK media is so thick, they just jump on. They just jump on fan content because they can't make good stories themselves. There has been a little bit of that at the moment, where maybe the worlds of fan media and fan content is sort of merging with traditional media. Primarily, traditional media would have been fact-based and less opinion, and then obviously fans were more opinion-based. Now the two seem to be merging, and I think a lot of that is because the pundits these days, they are fans, they are ex-players, the rules are a wee bit looser, the areas are a wee bit greyer. There's definitely been a merging of fact and opinion, even on the traditional media, which, to be fair, isn't what people generally were watching the traditional media for. They're looking there for the facts, and then they'll discuss the opinions with other fans. They don't really want to often discuss opinions with pundits, because that's not actually what you're there for. But that's a very good point, Anthony. Poor to no communication between the club and the fans didn't help. Now, that's completely true. Communication was horrendous, and the manager was hung out to dry, God love him. He was answering all the questions, and him that probably only had half the information. So he was definitely hung out to dry. And I think actually a lot of the problems in football are down to poor communication. Because I know, again, and it's not that I want to keep bringing it back to my club, but that's obviously the club that I know the most about, so I can relate to it. At the moment, like, we have all of our board coming out talking to the media, and this is the plan, and this is what we're doing, and blah blah blah. But do you see, a few weeks ago when it was loss after loss after loss after loss, people were questioning, is Amram going to make it to the next international break? Amram's going to get sacked. Nobody was coming out talking then, let me tell you. They all want to come out and talk when it's rosy and we've not had a loss in 4 games. Then all of a sudden everybody appears. So yes, I do think actually across the board a lot of clubs have absolutely terrible communication with their fans, and then the fans are relying on the media, and as we've just said, the media are now becoming more and more opinion based than fact based, so people are looking elsewhere for the facts, and sometimes they just make them up. So there's definitely a lot of that going on. Rob Always United. I think going on strike is terrible, and there's a lot of people of that opinion. Anthony, let me see, Isak is just reaping what he has sowed. He was the main man at Newcastle, and at Liverpool he's not, and it's affecting him on the pitch. So I think there's a lot of people that think that as well, and that's the kind of the karma, the reaping what you sow. And I have heard this thing of, you know, he moved from being a big fish in a small pond to being maybe a smaller fish in a big pond, and that's not in to be like disrespectful of Newcastle, because I think they are a big club. And I actually heard the commentators on their match the other day saying Newcastle are a big club. So I can't remember which commentator it was, but that's what he said. And I can, I can see it. I can see it. I'm laughing at Mama Flossie. Nah, he's a rat. Wish him no success at all. I'm not better, with some laughing faces. So we're a wee bit tongue-in-cheek there. But I think when it's your own club, you do feel a wee bit of vindication when you see it's not all rosy. When someone, if you perceive someone has treated your club badly. So I know for me, with Sancho, with Rashford, with Garnacho, with the Villa jersey, with the freedom fighting, with the comments in interviews and on social media, 2 out of 3 of them are not doing particularly well at the minute. One of them might have scored a goal last night, but overall it's not been good for him. Jadon Sancho is literally the forgotten man. Marcus Rashford is absolutely nailing it in Spain. I hope he's nailing it so well that they want to buy him permanently for a very good price, because obviously that combination is better than the combination between him and Manchester United. But I think sometimes as a fan, you do feel that wee bit of vindication where you're like, do you know what? You weren't very nice to us and now look. So I completely understand that. Now, let me see. There was no agreement, and that's the thing, Flossie. There was never any confirmation that this agreement, obviously the sale went through in the end, but we never got confirmation that this agreement existed. And I would suggest that if there was a legal agreement in place, and legal agreements can be verbal, but I would suggest if there was a legal agreement in place, potentially it wouldn't have dragged on as long as it did. But we don't know. But you're right, there's been absolutely no confirmation that there was ever an actual agreement. It's all a bit of talk and kind of, as I said, mostly stuff put out through intermediaries, third parties, agents, rather than from the player himself, although he did make some sort of allusions to it, but you know, primarily it was through other people. Fans need transparency from clubs. We do. And the thing is, we're never going to get full transparency, because at the end of the day, as much as we love them because there are football clubs, they are also businesses, and no business is ever going to be 100% transparent with the public, because that doesn't make sense. Also, however transparent they are with their fans, they're also putting that out to all their rivals and everybody else. So I understand there will always be parts that we don't know about our clubs, and that's okay, that's realistic. But I do agree that there needs to be more transparency, and not just when it suits them, because that's when it happens, is when it suits them. They're all about transparency. When it doesn't suit them, they don't want to know. I think that's a big part of it as well. They need to be more transparent, and they need to be communicating more regularly. So let me see. So guess, I didn't follow the Isak thing closely, but I can't really blame a guy for trying to get the best deal for themselves. I could be missing something. I think probably what you're missing is the emotion of being a Newcastle fan. So I think from the outside in, I would agree with you. If you just take all emotion out of it, you're completely neutral, and you say, at the end of the day, he wanted out of the club, he wanted to play for Liverpool, he wanted a better deal, this is what he wanted to do, and this is what he had to do to get it. I think just from a purely neutral standpoint, you can say, do you know what, fair enough. A lot of people in life do that. If you want something, you go after it and you fight hard for it, and then you can't say, oh well, I didn't get it because I didn't try hard enough. So I would often be of that point of view. Maybe I've been influenced by Ash and Flossie and the other Newcastle fans, and I'm like, oh my god, he was so mean to the club. Maybe I am talking about the wrong person being soft. Am I soft? Is Newcastle soft? Have Newcastle just gone, do you know what? He was really mean. We were nice to him. And then he was really mean and he left us for a different club. And he did it like in a way we didn't like. Is Newcastle being soft? Sorry, Flossie, don't kill me. But maybe we're looking at it all wrong. And this is why we have chats, and this is why we do shows, and this is why we talk to each other, because sometimes it gives us a different point of view. So maybe everybody's being soft, the whole lot of us, the fans, the players and the clubs, we're all a bit soft. We all need to catch a grip of ourselves. Now, more comments. Hello, Gulcha. I'm sorry if I've said that incorrectly. I did my very best. That's very true. So Guess is in fact Swedish. So what she has said is maybe the biased Swedish press has done its job. And that's maybe very correct, because what's put out there in Sweden is potentially very, very different than what was put out there in the UK and in Ireland. So actually that's a very good point that I would not have thought of by myself. So good thinking there. Anthony, Lou, Rashford's price is 28 million buy clause for Barcelona. I'll find the link and send you, pop it through to me. To be fair, given all the water under the bridge, while I do think he's a player that's worth a lot more than 28 million, I can completely understand why the club and Rashford at this point just want to part ways, money in the bank, he gets the life he wants, done and dusted. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't turn into one of these sagas that we're actually talking about here. So, we've gone around the houses, we've talked about all the different players, how the different players have dealt with the controversy. So, in my opinion, Maguire handled it really, really, really well. Jed Spence and Van de Ven, I think were a bit soft. They were a wee bit questionable and they disrespected their fans as much as their manager, and I think the fans should be getting an apology as well as the manager. If you show your disrespect publicly, then you should have to apologise publicly. That's my opinion. The Trent Alexander-Arnold one, I think is a wee bit more nuanced. There's maybe a wee bit of emotion involved there, but he hasn't really come out and said anything. He's not come after people. He seems to be hurt by it, but he's understanding the situation, so he seems to be doing okay. Alexander Isak, whether we think he was right or wrong to leave Newcastle, whether we think he went about it the right or wrong way, it has definitely impacted him. He's definitely not the player he was last season. Part of that might be, as Anthony said, he's moved from being a big fish in a small pond to a small fish in a big pond. It might be the case that he's just finding his feet. It might be the case that he's just taking longer to adjust to his new teammates. It might be the case that a lot of the drama from the summer transfer window, the fact that he decided he was going to go on strike, has now impacted him as a player. And that maybe if he had just sucked it up, done what he was supposed to do by his contract, he wouldn't be in the position he's in. He'd be having another blinder of a season. But then again, maybe he feels that he needed to go that hard line. He needed to do that or he wasn't going to get out, and for him staying wasn't an option. So maybe he wasn't soft at all. Maybe he was really hard line and he did what he needed to do to get the move that he wanted. So again, there's loads and loads of different ways of looking at these things. I do believe overall, players are definitely a lot more impacted by the public than they used to be. Obviously, we know social media has had an absolutely massive influence on that. But I've seen, for example, in press conferences where Ruben Amorim has said, I'm not on social media. I've seen other managers in press conferences say, I'm not on social media. So players can do that. Players aren't obliged to be on social media. They opt into that. And I know that might be part of their brand and their sponsorships and everything else. They can choose not to do that. So if it's something that they feel is really impacting them, is really bothering them, it's causing them distress, it's impacting their ability to do their job, don't be there. Get off it. Don't go on X. Don't go on Instagram. Don't read the comments if it bothers you that much. Or if you feel that actually you can't avoid it, you can't help yourself looking at it, maybe take a long hard look and decide, okay, is this something I want to do? This is factually a part of this role. I am going to be judged. The fans are going to make their opinions heard. If I can't deal with that, maybe I shouldn't be a footballer. Maybe I shouldn't be in the entertainment industry. Maybe I should be a coach. Maybe I should do something else. Maybe I've got other talents. Do you know what I mean? So what do you guys think? Do you think overall that footballers have become a wee bit softer? That they're a bit more impacted by the way fans are behaving? Do you think it's a natural step that they're becoming more impacted because obviously they're seeing more of it? They're you know, it's at their fingertips, they're on their phones, and it's so much harder for them to avoid. What do you think? Let me know. I've given you my opinions for ages, so let me see. Anthony. Lou, Isak is just not the right fit at Liverpool. The striker they brought, 70 million, is outshining him badly. I think you mean Ekitike, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Liverpool should have built squad depth with that 125 million they're suffering because they spent. I agree. I think there's more that they could have done with that money than Isak, and Ekitike is absolutely smashing it. And I would say there are potentially members of the Liverpool board who will not say this out loud, who are now probably thinking, with hindsight, because it's so much easier with hindsight, and they're probably thinking, well then, what other players could we have got in to help us? And I think there was a lot of talk about what are Liverpool going to do when Salah moves on. You know, he's not getting any younger. He has been absolutely fantastic for them. He's eventually going to move on or retire. We need a plan in place for that. Obviously, they saw Isak. They said he's Premier League proven. He's banging in the goals. He, to the rest of the world, appeared to be a model professional right up until this summer. Exactly the kind of personality you would look for. He seems like an ideal replacement to move from sort of a middle-sized team to a big boy team. Absolutely primed. You can understand the thinking. I don't understand the price tag, but then you've got the Premier League tax and you're paying because they didn't want to sell him. So you have to pay more. If somebody has something, they don't want to sell it, and you want to buy it, you're going to have to pay them more money. So that kind of feeds into the price tag. But I would say there are probably people at Liverpool going, was this the right decision? Now, it may be the case that he's just finding his feet and eventually he is going to hit the ground, eventually it's going to click and he's going to start smashing it again. We don't know. And as people keep telling me, it's only 10 games into the season. It's so early. And I'm like, well, 10 games is 900 minutes. That's a lot of minutes. 10 games is like a decent proportion of the season. So I don't think we can just keep saying, what are we going to say? Well, it's only 20 games into the season. It doesn't matter. It's only 20 games. Like, eventually, like, how soon is too soon? Like, eventually you have to be able to just start judging things. At the moment, he's not doing well. That might change in the future. But it doesn't change what's happening right now. So, that's my wee rant on that as well. Oh, we have a new chatter. Say hello, everybody. Welcome, Sad Boy, Bootleg Boy. Thank you for joining us. Now I'm going to try and read this. My eyesight is terrible, as you can see, so I'm going to try and read this properly. Footballers are hated for betraying their club by forcing a move such as Isak, while the club can ship you out when they feel like it. Clubs are organisations and players are individuals. This is something I did see a lot of during the summer. People saying, well, why is it different rules for one and not the other? You know, the club has all the power. The club can throw you to the side whenever they feel like it. They can sell you during your contract. Why should a player not be able to leave when they want during the contract? What I would say to that is, while it might not be fair, it's the reality. The employer has more power. The organisation has more power. It's the same across the board in every walk of life, in almost every career. And as I said, I'm not saying that that's right or wrong, but it's a fact. The organisation holds the power. Now, sometimes they need you more than you need them, and the power shift can sort of change. It's definitely something that's becoming not more prevalent, because it's always been there, but it's being put into the spotlight. I think the same as these sort of these agreements that aren't really formal agreements, they're sort of gentlemen's agreements. I think that's also been thrown into the spotlight this summer. So I think there's been a few agreements and a few deals and a few transfers this summer with players that have thrown things into the spotlight that maybe it's the way they've always been done, but now that the world is changing, now that, as Guess says, society is changing, maybe the way we do things needs to change as well, needs to update, and we need to catch up with the times and start going, well, this has always worked. Okay, but that doesn't mean it's always going to work. So I can understand what you're saying, and it is an unfair power dynamic, and very much so. The players are at a disadvantage, and the players are criticised for behaving that way, while the clubs are generally lauded. I do think the other part of that, and the reason that it happens that way in football, is that most people are fans of clubs. You do get some people that are fans of players, the likes of a Ronaldo or a Messi, where they're a fan of that player and they follow that player from club to club to club. But the vast majority of people are fans of their club. Therefore, if the club is doing something that is seen to be like for the benefit of the club, it's for the benefit of the fans, it's for the benefit of the team, it's going to make you better next season, you're going to jump up a few spots, that's okay. Be as ruthless as you like. If the player's looking out for number one and the player's being ruthless, that doesn't benefit your team generally. It doesn't benefit the fans, so it's viewed differently. You're going to pick the one that benefits you as a fan and your club. You're never going to back the player against your club. So I do think that changes how people perceive these actions then as well. It's the same as like a lot of the times, if the player was going on strike to come to your club, you're probably not going to mind as much as if they're going on strike to leave. You might say it, you might morally want to feel the same, but the reality is you're probably not going to. You're probably going to be like, well, I hope he doesn't do it to us. And actually that's a concern I had with Anthony, because Anthony went on strike to come to Manchester United, and you're kind of going, okay, is he going to do that to us? And then he wanted to go to Betis and only Betis, and we did have a bit of an issue in the summer because he didn't want to go anywhere else. So it's fine when it works in your favour. When it doesn't work in your favour, you start to question it. I do think that's partially just human nature. Don't forget, like everyone, and get friends to join. It's a great channel, and Lou hasn't called me a prat yet. Well done, poor Dave boy. No prats in my chat, just people drinking tea, having a chat, expressing their opinions. Please do hit the like button. I know most people have subscribed. If you haven't, please do subscribe. Please turn your notifications on. I know we're only a wee small group at the moment. You know what? Sometimes that's better off because I'm able to read everybody's comments, and it's more just like a bit of a chat amongst friends, which is really what fan channels started about in the first place. How do you talk to your friends over a cup of tea? What do you say after a match in the pub, and not trying to be pundits? I don't want to be a pundit. I don't want to be a tactical. They pay pundits to pundit. I just want a fan. And to be honest, a big part of my thing behind this channel was to talk about the things that maybe I see fans talking about in group chats. I see fans talking about in comment sections. I moderate on a few channels, as some of you know. I'm on Football Terrace on the after-match panels. I see a lot of football commentary from fans, and I felt there was a lot of topics that fans were talking about, but then that content creators weren't speaking about. And we were just seeing the same videos and topics regurgitated over and over in the same way. And I thought, you know what? If nobody else is going to do it, sure, I'll give it a go. I'll turn the camera on, I'll have a bit of a natter, and everyone can type away in the comments then. From the streets to Lydium, hello my friend. No Hassam here to shout at you tonight. Thank you for subscribing. Please do smash a like since you're here. Nobody's going to shame you in this comment section. There's no frauds and there's no prats. We're all just lovelies. So it's nice to see, nice to see. I'm going to take a sip of this because it's getting cold. I can feel it getting cold in my hand. Now lads, it is just going 10 to 8. I am very aware that we have Twisted Baba in the comment section. Europa League is very important. even though my team isn't in it. My team's not in any Europe, but we're not going to look down on any of the teams in the Europa League. At the moment, I'm looking up at them. I know people want to go and watch the football, so I'm not going to keep you ages and ages. I've actually already babbled on way longer than I expected. Get your comments in when the show's over. If there's anything that comes to you afterwards, or maybe anything that I didn't read out, I did try and get through a lot of them, but anything that I didn't read out, if you've any ideas, I'm going to try and do this the same time, kind of 7 o'clock on a Thursday, sort of before the other channels maybe that just watch or subscribe to our live, or maybe before the Europa League's kicking off. It's very hard to find a good time, lads, honest to God, but I will try. I'm going to try my best to kind of do it at this time on a Thursday every week. Pencil me into your diary. Get in the comments what you would like to talk about. Get in the comments what you thought of the video. Anything you would change. Please smash a like. Thank you for joining me. And I will hope to speak to you all again very, very soon. Now, don't laugh at me, but I need to find a way out of this, because the last time I did it on the computer and today I'm on the phone. So I'm going to try and get out. Thank you all for being here. See you soon.